Lashana Tova, welcome to our Yom Kippur virtual service. I know that this is very different than being able to gather together as a community in the beautiful halls of RRUUC, but know that the spirit of the holiday and the connection between each one of us is still here and is still strong, even though we are spread out today. And I am so thankful that we are able to spend this time together and to commemorate Yom Kippur as a community. We begin. The observance of Yom Kippur goes back thousands of years to the time the Torah was written and to the era of the temple in Jerusalem. Our ancestors endowed this holiest of days with multiple layers of meaning. These essential themes provide the structure of our liturgy today. Just as the ram's horn summoned the Israelites of ancient times, Jews around the world today answer their people's call to conscience. The shofar announces these days of awe are set aside from all the other days of the year. May this community be open wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for fellowship. May our community welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May our community be closed to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May our community have no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May we not admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May our community, for all those who are part of it, be a way to a richer and more meaningful life.
On this day, it is fitting to honor the thousands of years of history Jews have shared as we observe an ancient and sacred tradition in a new and special way. Tradition imbues this day with an atmosphere of dread and foreboding. We choose to temper that mood with the warmth and beauty that is also intrinsic to the history of our people.
If this is a day of remembrance, it is also a day of renewal. If this is a time for atonement, it is also a time for hope. If this is a time to assess the values of our past deeds, it is also a time to contemplate our future deeds.
Like an alarm clock, the shofar unsettles us, yet some people sleep through the alarm clock's jolting rings. The appeal to conscience is clear and direct enough, yet we all too often ignore it.
We prepare now to hear the sounding of the shofar. Let its call awaken us, open our hearts, and renew our commitment to our ideals.
Tekiah. Shavarim. Teruah. Tekiah Gedolah.
Tiku bashofar, hashmiu emet, hashmiu bina. Tiku bashofar, hashmiu Torah, hashmiu emet.
We continue now on the top of page 4 of our Yom Kippur service. The meanings of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are deeply intertwined. Their most important message for us is that these chosen days call us to to our deeper consciousness. On Rosh Hashanah, we look ahead to our actions in the year to come. On Yom Kippur, we review our deeds of the past year.
Why does Yom Kippur follow Rosh Hashanah? Shouldn't it be the other way around? First, a settling of accounts for the previous year, then a celebration of a new year with promises of change and its potential for betterment. It is not necessary to clear away the old, to repent the past before we really become the new.
The hope for a new year must precede a systematic review of the old, for it shakes us awake to the possibility of renewal. The new year calls us to join in the struggle to transform ourselves. The shofar blasts are meant to arouse our slothful selves to the new possibilities that await us. Our conscience of the new year and what it offers, we are ready to look back at our past. Conscious that life can be sweet as apples dipped in honey, that Sarah can bear a first child even in old age, and that Abraham's descending knife can be halted in midair. We approach Yom Kippur with the hope for growth and change.
On this Yom Kippur, we crave connection to one another after months of physical distancing and isolation. On this Yom Kippur, we think for all those we miss and wish we could be together.
On this Yom Kippur, we crave connection to our heritage. Although in separate homes, we come together today to celebrate and affirm our connection to the Jewish people. On this Yom Kippur, we repeat the words of our ancestors and remember that we are B'nai Yisrael, the people of Israel.
On this Yom Kippur, may we find the connections we seek. Healing!
May medical scientists and researchers around the world have insight and skill, dedication and fortitude as they combat coronavirus, so that their work yields knowledge and understanding, speedily finding a vaccine, treatments, and deterrence to its spread.
May public health and government officials have the strength to act swiftly and decisively with compassion and understanding and service to humankind.
May each of us do our part to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and neighbors during this time of need. Through our actions, may our community, country, and world find renewed health and peace.
Yom Kippur is the solemn gathering of the community. Jewish households throughout the world join together on this day as one house dedicated to establishing peace and justice for all people. We come together as a community as we read responsibly. We enter the sacred time and the sacred place.
To rediscover the community of our people, to renew our faith in the goodness and beauty of life, to reaffirm Judaism's commitment to pursue truth and justice,
to rekindle the ancient flame of memory and hope, to reclaim our ancestors' vision of a world where all nations live together in peace.
On this day of Yom Kippur, we come together, friends, families, neighbors, united by a common need and a common bond. Our need at this season is to renew our lives, to go forward stronger, wiser, kinder than we were before this day. Our bond is the kinship of our shared humanity and our common love for Judaism.
Our spirits hunger. They long for friendship. They crave understanding. They yearn for warmth. May we, in our common need, gain strength from one another as we share our joys, lighten each other's burdens, and work for the welfare of our community and the world.
Please join me in Matovu, a traditional beginning to a morning service, which expresses appreciation for community. Matovu halecha Yaakov, Mishknotecha Yisrael, Va'ani brochastecha aval betecha. How goodly are your tents, my brother Jacob. Israel. I love the place your glory dwells, the place wherein your glory dwells.
And what we're talking about today is what we've learned or gained living through the time of COVID. I can certainly talk about what I've gained, connections with relatives that live far away, friends that I didn't talk to anymore. A lot of that stuff has been nice. But today I'm mostly going to talk about what I've learned. I learned that sweatpants are bad for self-esteem. I learned that human beings, no matter how introverted, are social animals. I learned that things can unravel quickly. I learned that when expectations of me are lowered, my work ethic lowers too. I learned that my self-worth follows close behind. I learned to be okay with hearing myself talk on camera. I learned that I am not essential. I learned that I could almost disappear. I learned that it's easier to give sympathy than to share the burden. I learned that people are better at rationalizing than risk assessing. I learned that people are not actually rational at all. I learned that I might be nocturnal. I learned eine kleine Deutsch. I learned that it's a little satisfying to cancel everything. I learned that part of me never really felt like getting up early or impressing dinner guests or driving to campus or picking out clothes or finding tennis partners anyway. I learned how to paddle a single-seat canoe. I learned that calisthenics is not actually easy stretching for old people. I learned that it's really hard to make choices about what's important enough to risk and to figure out how to keep doing those things. I learned that it's worth it. I learned to stop waiting. I learned that an abundance of caution is probably too much caution. I learned that there's a secluded creek just down the street. I learned that meteorologists are not actually the only people who get to be wrong and still keep their jobs. I learned to check sources. I learned how to make my own yogurt. I learned that I alone am responsible for my own destiny. And I learned that that's not as bad as it sounds.
Hello everyone, good Yontif. I hope all are well and staying safe. For those that do not know me, my name is Beth Harris, and my family, including my husband Steve, my daughter Haley, and my son Alex, joined Beth High in 2018 after moving to Silver Spring from Capitol Hill. I was asked to speak briefly today on what I have learned or gained from living through a time of COVID. As a working parent to 2 elementary school-aged children, there hasn't been much opportunity for reflection these past several months. In our family, my husband has the more demanding job, so I'm balancing my professional responsibilities with caring for the kids, overseeing most of virtual school, and managing a household without the simple luxuries of a quick trip to the grocery store or a regular housekeeper. On a separate but related note, I am not gifted with strong creative writing skills. When I sat down to consider the topic at hand, I couldn't think of an original message that seemed both authentic and uplifting for a high holiday service. So I began to ask close friends and family members for their ideas, and I've put together a pretty solid list along with some of my own thoughts. One term that I've learned during this time is listicle. You've probably seen one on BuzzFeed or some other corner of the internet. So here goes my COVID learning listicle. We consume, as a family, a lot more food and groceries than I realized. Much more. That at the ages of 7 and 9, it is normal and not a sign of stress or COVID to lose several teeth in a short period of time. We have lost 6 since March. That our home needed more internet bandwidth, which is now thankfully resolved. That my kids are more awesome than I ever knew. This idea is courtesy of my kids. That there's a term to describe that feeling when other people tell you everything will be all right, and you know it's not. That term, by the way, is toxic positivity. Personally, I am more comforted by people agreeing that it's a difficult period and not expecting normality. That parent listservs and chat boards should be avoided at all costs during these divisive times, especially during those weeks when school reopenings were being decided. That hugs are better than they seem and are terribly missed by many, including me, that I am not a very good hairdresser, but my community is polite enough not to tell me that, that when pools are closed but the bay is open, you can swim there, but beware the jellyfish. Apparently a few stings are tolerable. Lest we miss an opportunity for policy change, that everyone deserves paid sick leave and our public health system should be fully funded and not politicized. That 20 seconds of hand washing is approximately 10 times as much as my kids would normally do. From my insightful neighbor, that prior to COVID, she was too often seeking abundance when what she really desires is sufficiency. And that was something that rang true for me as well. And quite a few fellow parents told me that we all did too much before, and that the pared down schedule since COVID started should last. Part of me agrees with this, but part of me really misses the people and activities that enriched our lives, and I can't wait for a lot of that to come back. So that's my listicle. Perhaps the list itself shows me how lucky I am to have lots of smart, caring, and generous people in my life. Thanks for listening. Please take good care of yourselves and one another.
On Yom Kippur, the everyday concerns of our lives as humans are suspended. We enter into a period of reflection, evaluation, and commitment. The Torah commands us to observe Yom Kippur by fasting from dusk to dusk. The prophet Isaiah tells us the fuller meaning of the Torah's words. Please join with me. It is not this the fast that I desire, the unlocking of the chains of wickedness, the loosening of exploitation, the freeing of all those oppressed, the breaking of the yoke of servitude. Is it not the sharing of your bread with those who starve, the bringing of the wretched poor into your house, or clothing someone you see who is naked, and not hiding from your kin in their need? Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and the waters of your healing shall flourish again. This day calls us to confront the failings of our personal lives and to acknowledge the failures of our society. Heeding the prophetic voice of Jewish tradition, we undertake the work of healing ourselves and making our society whole. This traditional communal confession of sin is an ancient tool for the cleansing of conscience. We are not so arrogant and stiff-necked as to say we are perfect and have no failings. We all have committed offenses. Together, we acknowledge these human shortcomings. Please join with me. May our hearts and minds be open to what this day asks of us. May we be prepared to listen with our minds and our hearts, and to raise our voices with the voices of Jews all over the world. The starting place is within. While there is time before the final blast on Yom Kippur, tradition tells us that we have the means to change our destinies.
Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazanu, Dibarnu Dofi, Lai 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 Ha'evinu, Vehir Shanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafanu Sheker, Lai 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 Yatsnu Ra, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tsararnu, Kishinu, Horef, Lai, 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 Rashanu, Shichadnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, Lai, 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 Lai.
We join Jews around the world as together we recite these traditional words of atonement. We have trespassed. We have dealt treacherously. We have robbed. We have spoken slander. We have acted perversely. We have done wrongs. We have acted presumptuously. We have done violence. We have practiced deceit. We have counseled evil. We have spoken falsehood. We have scoffed. We have revolted. We have blasphemed. We have rebelled. We have committed iniquity. We have transgressed. We have oppressed. We have been stiff-necked. We acted wickedly. We have dealt corruptly. We have committed abomination. We have gone astray. We have led others astray. Yes, we have thrown ourselves off course, and we have tempted and misled. For all these wrongs, we seek atonement. For the wrongs we have committed by bearing grudges. For the wrongs we have committed by indulging in excessive luxuries. For the wrong we've committed by giving less tzedakah than we could afford. For the wrong we've committed by manipulating others for our own gain. For the wrong we've committed by making those we love feel guilty. For the wrong we've committed by being ashamed to act morally in public. For all these wrongs, we seek forgiveness from family, from community, and from ourselves. The words of Avinu Malkeinu are a prayer of penitence. The traditional melody for Avinu Malkeinu is a timeless and haunting expression of the ever-present yearning for healing and acceptance despite our human frailties. Our cantor lets us hear its traditional words.
Avinu Malkeinu, Hanenu v'hanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Hanenu v'hanenu. Ki ein manu masim, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'hoshienu.
No individual is guilty of all these sins, yet we admit to them and atone for them nonetheless. This communal acknowledgement serves not only as an admission of what is past, but also as a warning against what might come to pass if we fail to guard against it. We join together. This week, wherever Jews are, the sound of the shofar has echoed. It has been heard in our hearts. Quiet moments have been pulled out of our busy days. Where it has been heard in the mind, it has called us to pay attention, to return to ourselves, to slow down, turn inward. Today, we are concerned with reflection, revaluation, and change. This tradition originates in the legend of the Book of Life, which states that on Rosh Hashanah, each person's destiny for the year to come was inscribed by the angel of life. We joined together. During the following days, the book stayed open while the people reflected and reconsidered their lives. If they discovered how to relate that understanding to their behavior, the angel of life would reconsider what has been written. But at the last sound of the shofar on the day of Yom Kippur, says tradition, the book of life is sealed for the year to come. And we say together, that which does not change becomes its own past, without a future. Those who change without choosing are servants to the whim of time.
Each of us is an author, each of us a scribe, writing with our lives upon a scroll, lines that will never be erased. No kindness is ever done in vain, and each mean act leaves its imprint. And our actions, the good and the bad, are noted and remembered.
May our lives reflect this awareness. May our deeds bring no shame or reproach. May our entries in the Book of Life be worthy of our noblest aspirations. Yom Kippur is the day to celebrate our kinship with the Jewish people. In all times and in all corners of the globe, we are one with all peoples who seek peace and beauty through a dedication to Jewish ideals.
We are one with the young parents who sing a lullaby handed down through generations, singing to their children in many lands, sharing the gentle words and the ancient melody. We share their instinctive need to pass on this ancient heritage.
The Talmud says, "Do not condemn your neighbor. You do not know what you would have done in their place."
The Talmud says, "Condemn no one and consider nothing impossible, for there is no one who does not have a future, and nothing that does not have its hour."
The matriarch Sarah treated her maidservant Hagar cruelly. The patriarch Jacob deceived his father and betrayed his brother. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Miriam and Aaron gossiped about Moses. We have all transgressed.
Yom Kippur is a practical reminder of our fallibility. In recognition of our own limitations lies the source of compassion for others. In our own humility lies the source of our bonds with all people. In those bonds lie our strength. Yom Kippur is traditionally the day of confession. The harm we do to others is but a reflection of the hurt we inflict upon ourselves.
As we ask for forgiveness for ourselves, so too must we grant forgiveness to others. Let us now say together, I hereby forgive whoever has hurt me, whoever has done me any wrong, whether deliberately or by accident, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account. As I forgive and pardon fully those who have done me wrong, I shall seek out those whom I harmed and ask them to forgive and pardon me, whether I acted deliberately or by accident, whether by word or by deed. For thousands of years, Jews have recited the Shema in proclamation of our people's covenant with our ancestral heritage. Let us now rise in unity with our sisters and brothers around the world.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Join with us. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. This is Yom Kippur, the time to harvest hope. We cannot afford to waste this day in regretting the past. We must instead design a brighter tomorrow.
The Torah preserves the earliest written words of the Jewish people. Over the centuries, the Torah has grown into a complex network of voices that speak of Judaism's visionary social contract. The Torah is our civilization's perpetual discourse, connecting each person to the other, to the world, and to the cycles of life.
I'm going to read now from the book of Leviticus, the book of Vayikra in Hebrew. It is the section of Torah where we learn about Yom Kippur. B'chodesh hashvi'i ba'asar l'chodesh te'enu et nafshotechem v'kol melacha lo ta'asu ve'ezrach v'hager hagar b'totechechem ki v'yom hazeh yikaper elechem v'taher etchem mikol chatotechem livnei Adonai titharu Shabbat Shabbaton hi lachem v'inyetem et nafshotechem chuchat olam. And it shall be a statute to you forever that in the 7th month, on the 10th day of that month, you shall afflict yourselves and shall do no work, neither the native or the stranger who sojourns among you. For on this day you shall seek atonement for yourselves, to cleanse yourself. From all your sins you shall be clean. It is a Sabbath of solemn rest to you, and you shall afflict yourselves. It is a statute forever. Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, is a beautiful hymn to the Torah as the continuing body of Jewish learning and tradition. The first verse is from the book of Proverbs. The traditional second verse from the book of Lamentations recalls the destruction of the temple and expresses the hope for the restoration of the Jewish homeland. We sing the words of the first verse together.
Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcheha meusha deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu,
Good morning. When I began rabbinical school in the year 1992, my class of aspiring rabbis was groundbreaking in two ways. One prominently discussed by outsiders, and the second prominently discussed by the students ourselves. We were the first class at Hebrew Union College, the Reform Movement's seminary, to accept and include openly gay and lesbian students. We were a particularly large class because many LGB, there was no talk of T and Q at that time, had been waiting to enroll. Those outside the seminary called the matriculation of gay and lesbian students either a long overdue advancement or a complete shanda, Yiddish, for embarrassment. But to my fellow classmates and me, it was a non-issue. Our classmates were our classmates were our classmates. Any student who might have had a problem with the presence of gay and lesbian students in our class, either chose a different seminary or, I suppose, knew enough to keep their mouth shut. The outside world didn't care much about the second milestone that our class ushered in, but for us students, it occupied far more headspace. Our entrance into the seminary coincided with the announcement that the first fully egalitarian, the first gender equal prayer book would soon be published. One change, for example, for 2,000 years or so, traditional Jews have prayed by invoking the names of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as our foreparents. The new egalitarian prayer book promised to expand the Amidah to include the names of the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. And boy, did us budding rabbis talk about this change ad nauseum. Should the prayer state the patriarchs and then the matriarchs, or should it mention them in pairs, Abraham and Sarah, Rebecca and Isaac, etc., etc.? And who should be listed first, Leah or Rachel? Leah was the elder sister, but Rachel was the more beautiful and beloved. In the end, the rabbis editing the prayer book, a committee far more senior than a group of first-year rabbinical students, chose to list the 3 patriarchs, followed by the 4 matriarchs, and to place the sister Rachel before the sister Leah. Perhaps not the most feminist of decisions, but choices canonized and still in place today. The committee's inclusion of the women, a big step forward. The exact wording, it just shows that there was still more work to be done. In the words of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. In the words of Rabbi Tarfon in the Mishnah's Pirkei Avot, you are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to not start it. Jewish tradition is full of implicit gender bias. I just mentioned Pirkei Avot, the famed rabbinic text of ethical teachings. The word Pirkei Avot, or the phrase Pirkei Avot, literally means ethics of the father. Another example, the words Jew and Judaism come from the name Judah, Jacob's 4th son. Or consider the phrase B'nai Yisrael, one of the celebrated names of our community. B'nai typically translates to children, but in actuality means sons. Yisrael is the name for the patriarch Jacob. Taken together, B'nai Yisrael means literally the sons of Jacob, doubly male. But my purpose today is not to stew over the inherent sexism of a tradition that's 4,000 years old. In the words of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, do not be distracted by emotions like anger, envy, resentment. These just zap energy and waste time. In the words of the Talmud, anger will cause a sage to lose his wisdom, a person who is destined for greatness to forfeit it. No, I'd rather celebrate the life of a great American Jewish woman, one who realized that change takes time. Much has been written and said over the past week about Justice Ginsburg's judicial record, about her championship of women's rights, about her evolution into a cultural icon. There are many experts far more knowledgeable than me to speak about her contributions to jurisprudence. Like so many of you, I'm deeply concerned about the future of the Supreme Court, and I wish I had some unique words of wisdom to help to address those concerns. Yet, Justice Ginsburg touched my life in a way that hasn't really been highlighted over the past week. Justice Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, in addition to being a groundbreaking jurist, was also an American Jewish woman. In uniquely personal, intimate ways, she was such a role model for our American Jewish community, and especially for American Jewish women and girls. Ruth Bader Ginsburg may have been more accomplished, more influential, more well-known than most, but she was one of us, inquisitive and learned, sharp and cultured, devoted to justice and devoted to family. How many of you know a smart, sassy, hard-working woman, or may happen to be one yourself? I know this congregation, and every face should be nodding, and every hand should be going up. So this morning, I'd like to make a proposal. For 4,000 years, our community, women and men alike, have been known as Bnei Yisrael, the sons of Jacob. This week, let us also call ourselves Benot Ruth, the daughters of Ruth, or perhaps a more egalitarian and gentle translation, the children of Ruth. We recognize our own stories in RBGs. There isn't much more of a quintessential Jewish American story than Celia and Nathan Ginsburg immigrating from Austria, settling in Flatbush, raising a daughter who would become a Supreme Court justice. As a community, as Benot Ruth, we recognize the unique promise in the United States and understand the importance of hard work, education, and the promise of the next generation. These are our communal norms and the cornerstone of our success. As Benot Ruth, as children of Ruth, we incorporate Jewish teachings into our daily lives in organic ways. The values of Judaism are ingrained within us and impact our decisions and actions all the time. In the words of Justice Ginsburg, I quote, "I am a judge, born, raised, and proud of being a Jew. The demands for justice run through the entirety of the Jewish tradition. I hope in my years on the bench of the Supreme Court of the United States, I will have had the strength and courage to remain constant in the service of that demand." As Benot Ruth, as the children of Ruth, we view our role in the world as change agents. We can make a difference. The Jewish concept of tikkun olam literally means to heal the world. In the words of Justice Ginsburg, I want to be remembered as someone who helped to repair tears in her society, to make things a little better through the use of whatever ability she has. As Benot Ruth, as children of Ruth, we are the consummate dissenters. Arguing, well, it's nearly part of our American Jewish DNA. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, "Dissent is indigenous to Judaism. But we dissent because it is our hope for the future." In the words of Justice Ginsburg, dissents speak to a future age. It is not simply to say my colleagues are wrong and I do it this way, but the greatest dissents do become court opinions. Our Jewish community has been around for 4,000 years. We know about the long view. As Benot Ruth, as the children of Ruth, we are all about family and all about partnership. By all accounts, Ruth and her beloved Marty were mutually supportive, loving, and forgiving. They were ideals of modern Jewish marriage, sharing life's challenges, triumphs, and importantly, the role of child raising. In the words of Justice Ginsburg, if you have a caring life partner, you help the other person when that person needs it. I had a life partner who thought my work was important as his, and I think that made all the difference for me. And as Benot Ruth, we accept hardship as a catalyst for change. We are the post-Holocaust generations. We are survivors. We have been taught to grow from the challenges. Justice Ginsburg viewed the sexism she experienced as a young attorney as the catalyst for her success. In her words, so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great, good fortune. In traditional Judaism, each Friday night, a husband praises his wife with the words of Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31. It is called Eshet Chayil, woman of valor. These same words are traditionally recited at the funeral of Jewish women. Women of valor is a great concept, but the words are, shall we say, a little lacking. Here's a quote, for example, from the first two lines. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad all the days of her life. Certainly not Ruth Bader Ginsburg material. Oddly, though, after I heard of Justice Ginsburg passing, the phrase Eshet Chayil, woman of valor, kept coming to my mind. The text seemed to be beckoning me. Justice Ginsburg was all about the text, the legal text, that is. In her words, quote, reading is the key that opens doors. It occurred to me that maybe it was time for me to revisit the text to Proverbs 31. But instead, this time of reading Proverbs 31, 10, 11, I moved back a verse and read the previous verse. Verse 9, open your mouth, judge justly, plead the cause of the poor and needy. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, for her worth is far beyond rubies. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. May we be Benot Ruth, the daughters of Ruth, the children of Ruth, carrying on her legacy, that her memory will forever be for a blessing.
Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut hasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut hasadim.
As we prepare for the Yizkor service, our service of remembrance, we remember our loved ones who are no longer with us. And we think of them and what they added to our lives. And even though we are not together physically as a community this year, we are together spiritually as a community to support one another and to remember those that our friends have lost, and share the names and the memories of those who we cared about and who we have lost. Among the blessings of life, none is more precious than love of family and friends, the strength and compassion of parents, the loyalty of brothers and sisters, the affection of children, the understanding of close friends. These strands weave the basic fabric of human happiness. When someone we love passes away, a part of our being dies also. But the memories of those we love live on long after their death to sustain and inspire us.
Let us recall the martyrs of Israel in the days of the Roman Empire, the innocents persecuted and slaughtered throughout the Middle Ages.
Let us not forget the wandering Jews of Europe, driven by the Inquisition from Spain, by the pogroms from Poland and Russia, by superstition and ignorance from one temporary haven to another.
Let us never forget the Jews of Europe in our own time, our brothers and sisters, our parents and our children, victims of a Holocaust born of hatred and inhumanity.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them.
In the flowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember them.
And in the opening of the buds and the rebirth of the spring, we remember them.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them.
In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
And when we have joys and we yearn, we share to remember them.
As long as we live, they too shall live, for they are part of us, as we remember them.
A rabbi was once passing through a field where he saw a very old man planting a fig tree. "Why are you planting that tree?" said he. "You surely do not expect to live long enough to see the seed growing up into a tree."
"Ah," replied the old man, "my ancestors planted trees not for themselves but for us, in order that we might enjoy the shade of the fruit. I am doing likewise for me."
According to the Midrash, the world is sustained by the just men and women in it. The light of justice and mercy has been passed on to us. Let us pass the light of truth and compassion to our children, to each other and the peoples of the world. Thus do we redeem the covenant of our people to serve as a beacon of justice and mercy. Thank you.
May the memories of those we love and who loved us bless our thoughts and actions today and in the year to come. May the special grace of their years reach out to touch our hearts and inspire our deeds.
Yehi shalom tova uvracha chen 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 v'chesed chesed v'rachamim. Yehi shalom tova uvracha chen 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 v'chesed chesed v'rachamim.
One of the most unique and one of the most special traditions at Beth Chai is the recitation of the names during the Yizkor service on Yom Kippur. Unfortunately, since we aren't able to gather together this year physically, We'll be sharing those names virtually with one another, but please know that we are together as a community, at least in spirit, to support one another as we think about those who we loved and lost. As we remember those who have died, may remembering their names enable us to share their memories with this community of friends. Let us take time to share the memories of those people whose lives touched our own. with me now in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divra kirutei v'yamlik malkutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorak le'olam u'lolmei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudasha baruchu. Le'lam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damiram b'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlaba rabba min shlamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. O say shalom b'romav. Uya say shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Let our feelings of loss as we remember loved ones increase our compassion for all living things. Let us pursue peace among the living. Let us find inner peace, shalom in the acceptance of our loss, cherishing memories of companionship that do not fade. Let us affirm our intention to hold fast to life, to nourish it, and to protect it. We reaffirm our faith that life continues and has meaning.
This poem was written by Hannah Senesh, a Hungarian Jew who was trained in Palestine to help Jews escape from Europe. After parachuting into Yugoslavia in 1944, she was discovered and executed at the age of 23.
There are stars whose radiance is visible on Earth, though they have long been extinct.
There are people whose brilliance continues to light the world, though they are no longer among the living.
These lights are particularly bright when the night is dark. They light the way for humankind.
Good morning. I'm Katie Trinagiolu, Vice President of Beth Chai. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for our virtual Yom Kippur service. With COVID keeping us physically apart, it's really nice and important that we can at least be together spiritually. We made our service this morning available to the broader public at no cost because we think that's a really important service. But if you would like to make a donation to our congregation, please go to the link provided on this video. For our Beth Chai members, welcome to our new school year and adult ed, which are underway now. If you haven't had a chance yet to renew your membership, there's still time. Just go to our website, bethchai.org, and click on the Renew button. If you're interested in joining our congregation, we'd be more than happy to speak with you. Feel free to contact us at info@bethchai.org. We look forward to seeing all of you online at our future events and in person at our physically distanced Sukkot celebration on October 4th. Thank you all for coming this morning. Good Yom Tov, and stay well.
Just as the gates of the temple precinct in ancient Jerusalem were locked at the end of the day, this solemn gathering of our community is now concluded. We return to ordinary days, dedicating the new year ahead to the attainment of truth, justice, and peace for all inhabitants of the world.
In this new year, let us strive to be honest with ourselves and sincere with others, sure of our own worth, ever reaching to live up to our highest ideals, ruled by reason, yet open to warmth and spontaneity, caring members of the human race and the ancient family of Judaism, reaching out to others, finding joy and strength within ourselves,
treasuring the potential and the reality of each day that passes. In the words of Psalm 90, teach us to number our days that we may get us a heart of wisdom.
Limnot yameinu kein hoda, limnot yameinu kein hoda, limnot yameinu kein hoda, vanavi levav chachma. Baboker kechatzir yachlof, lo erev yemoyer ve'havesh. Baboker Yasir Yachlof La'erev Yemoleh Ve'yavesh Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda Vanavi Levav Chachma.
The voices of Yom Kippur will soon be silent. From Beit Yisrael, this house of Israel, to Beit Chai, this house of life, we will continue to seek peace. May honesty, courage, and love help us approach the future, comforted by the meditations of these days of awe. And we join together. May the year we have entered be for us and for all the world a year of blessing and prosperity, a year of salvation and comfort, a year of peace and contentment, a year of joy and spiritual growth, a good year. And let us also add a year of good health and peace for our world.
Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness.
The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then.
Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out, and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kona Israel, v'emru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel. Oseh shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kona Israel, v'emru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Israel.
Let us be counted among those who are not satisfied with the status quo, but who yearn and work for a better world.
Give us the courage to quarrel with those who claim that we cannot afford to abolish poverty, injustice, and discrimination.
Give us the courage to quarrel with a society that condones dishonesty and unethical conduct and which suppresses truth.
But let our quarreling not be destructive. Let it be out of love, not rancor. Let it be in order to correct and to improve, not just for the sake of tearing down.
Give us the courage to quarrel with the idolaters who say, my country, right or wrong, instead of saying, my country, when it is right, my country to be made right whenever it is wrong. A bit more truth, a bit more justice, a bit more love than there would have been if we had not loved the world enough to quarrel with it. We listen one more time to the sound of the shofar.
Tekiah Gedolah.
Tekiah Gadolah.
A year of love, friendship, and comfort. A year of joy and a sense of well-being. A year of virtue and right choices.
May the year upon which we have entered be for us, for Israel, and for all humanity. A year of goodness and fulfillment.
A year which finds the hearts of parents united with the hearts of their children.
A year of health in mind and body.
And most of all, a year of peace.
May the year upon which we have entered be for us, for Israel, and for all humanity. May it be a year of life. May it be a year of vision. May it be a year of hope.
Lechi lach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you. And you shall be a blessing. And you shall be a blessing. And you shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. Lechi lach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi lach.